Join me now from Tucson, Arizona, Senior Fellow with the Independent Institute, Lawrence McQuillan. Lawrence, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
So, Lawrence, when Governor Newsom proclaimed that the debate is over around climate change, do you agree with that?
Well, I think the key point that the governor is missing is that the fuel load is excessive in the forests in California and throughout the West, and that we need to urgently address that and reduce the excess fuel loads. Otherwise, we're going to be seeing this year after year after year. We can't wait for 50 or 60 years for countries to come together with some sort of global warming agenda, which probably won't be easy to track because the models are so inaccurate, that I think that the more urgent response is to get in there and clear the forests today. Otherwise, we're going to see this year after year after year in California and the other western states.
Yeah. When Newsom talks about climate change, I mean, he's basically promoting democratic policies, if you will. And I don't think there's a question here. Yeah, the climate changes, the weather changes. It's a very dry season in California. And so when they talk about this, it's very misleading and it's very dishonest. They make it seem like if you were to vote Democrats in and let them run away with all their green initiatives and global warming initiatives and climate change, what have you, that all of a sudden this would all disappear and we wouldn't have these type of fires in California.
Well, California and Oregon, for example, Democrats have controlled the state for decades, especially in California, and they've let this fuel load build up. They don't even believe their own models, obviously. If they really believed this was going to happen, why didn't they address this 20 years ago and start removing the excess fuel loads in the forest? Keep in mind, in California, about 60% of the forest land is owned by either the state or federal government. So they have primary control over that land, and the other 40% is privately owned, but private landowners can't just go in and clear their own land of dead trees and underbrush. They need permits and permission, which is slow and timely. The red tape is choking California in terms of trying to be able to respond to this quickly. If we don't have the urgency that is necessary to fix this problem quickly, we're going to see this year after year.
I'm kind of confused. Why can't private citizens clear dead brush and this type of stuff that you speak of on their own property? Like, why is it such a long, dragged out process? What's the Democrats' argument against it?
Well, first you need a permit to go in there and to remove the dead underbrush and dead trees. Second, in California, you also need a state-certified timber harvesting company to come in and do it at a large scale. And if you want to do, for example, a prescribed burn, a controlled burn, to remove the deadwood on your property, again, the regional air quality management districts can shut you down and say you can't use this permit to burn this excess fuel because of the air quality impact. But keep in mind, a wildfire is far worse on the air quality than any controlled burn is. I mean, studies have shown it. We're obviously seeing it the last month or two in California. An uncontrolled wildfire pollutes the air far worse than a series of controlled burns would do.
Okay, so that's interesting. And so why is it that these politicians, specifically in California, don't understand this? Have they not seen the models? Like, what would be the motivation to not listen to the facts here and realize that real wildfires actually are worse for the environment? And if these so-called environmentalists actually care about the environment, they should take action.
Well, unfortunately, for decades, almost a century now, the government agencies that regulate the land have been captured by environmental groups that want to keep nature in its natural state, let nature run its course. But unfortunately, paired with that has been this ideology to suppress fires immediately. And therefore, you get this accumulation of fuel loads for decade after decade. And that's what we're seeing today is the uncontrolled fires that result from that. So it's really been that the environmental lobby has captured the regulatory agencies, both in Washington and Sacramento, and have prevented, therefore, landowners to do what landowners want to do, which is to clear out this excess fuel load.
What about PG&E, the electric company out there, power company, fireproofing their power lines? They say that that would help prevent these type of fires as well.
I think it would. I mean, there's a series of things that the electric utilities could do. I mean, one would be insulating their overhead power lines. Another would be burying, undergrounding their power lines in areas that are very remote, hard to get to. So if a fire starts in that area, you're going to have a hard time controlling it. Thankfully, San Diego, the electric utility down there has started to underground its power lines in the most remote forest land. And I think they've undergrounded about 60% of their lines. So they are doing the right thing. And I think we're going to see more of this by other utilities throughout California, especially PG&E.
What do you think the biggest takeaways from the fires in 2017 and 2018 that we should have implemented in this round? And again, these fires are unprecedented. I mean, the skies here are just completely gray. It's so smoky, you can smell it.
Right. I mean, I think the main thing that they should have done is a much more urgency in terms of doing thousands of these thinning projects throughout the state. So what Gavin Newsom did is when he became governor, the first thing he did was he implemented 35 of these treatment programs around the state. They're kind of community-based. So he likes to take credit for these 35 programs. But what he doesn't mention is that in order for these 35 programs to go forward, it required a special emergency proclamation by the governor to waive the environmental regulations. That's the only reason these 35 took place. And we don't need 35. We need 35,000 of these happening throughout California to scale back the excess deadwood. We have 150 million dead trees in California that need to be removed. 35 programs isn't going to do it. So we need to drastically ramp this up. And the way to do it is to scale back all of these environmental regulations that allow not only the government from doing this, but also private landowners.
Well, and it's interesting that Newsom comes out, speaks out, and we still don't know the origins of all the fires in California, for that matter. So again, it's pretty dishonest, it's reckless, and it's good to know that AOC's Green New Deal wouldn't have actually prevented these fires, and that there are other solutions. So hopefully the Democrats in California and some of the other states will wake up. We're gonna have to leave it here. Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.